Divorce lawyers of Reddit. What things do clients always think is unique about their divorce, but is actually common? There are two main areas I've seen people are delusional about a divorce: kids and assets. With kids, everyone screams about how much of a D their spouse is and how the kids just absolutely hate that person. 9 times out of 10, the kids just want to move on and get back into a normal routine. They don't care a whole lot about the faults of each parent. With assets, most people don't realize that being married really is a partnership and that there are ways other than earning income that a spouse contributes to the marital pot. Nearly without fail, the higher earning spouse is adamant that the court will be shocked by how little their spouse did and how there is no chance in hell their assets are going to be divided 50/50. When I practiced family law, a large portion of my job was tamping down expectations and having to just be real with people. Edit. A lot of people seem to be confusing alimony payments with division of marital assets. They are entirely different animals. Typically, the division of marital assets is solely based on when the assets were acquired and how they were acquired. On the other hand, alimony can be based on all kinds of factors, including, but not limited to, earning potential of each spouse, sacrifice of career by one spouse, spousal conduct, affairs, abuse, etc., expectation of lifestyle, many other factors that revolve around creating a smoother transition to single life as possible. In addition, I'm not advocating one doctrine or another. I am simply trying to explain what it is about the law that many clients don't seem to understand about divorce when they sit down with me for the first time. If you don't like the current state of the law, get involved in the political process and change things. There are successful ballot and legislative initiatives sweeping the country right now that are, at least championed as, changing how courts treat fathers when it comes to divorce. Edit 2. Many of you see my username as odd for an attorney. I'll let you in on a little secret. Many of us lawyers are normal people that are just as depraved and perverted as the rest of you sick ducks. We just happen to have a job that often requires us to present an image of formality and decency. Regardless, Mel Gibson's taint is not listed on my business card. I'm not a divorce lawyer, but I know a few of them. Pets. Everyone focuses on child support, but you have no idea how much acrimony is caused by who is taking the cat in the divorce. I've even heard of parents doing child-style visitation agreements and pet support. Spiteful it. Like a wife trying to claim her ex-husband's signed jersey just to burn it or whatever. This happens all the time and yet they all think that they are diabolical geniuses for wanting some asset just for the revenge value. The worst is when they tell their lawyer how much they really love that jersey and how much sentimental value it has. Like they need to fool their lawyer. Itch. Your lawyer doesn't give a duck why you want the jersey as long as you're paying him. Living together after divorce. Yeah. It's super weird, but a lot of couples own homes together and can't really quickly get out of that situation without simultaneously paying rent on a new place and mortgage on the old place. So they'll live together as they are divorcing and trying to sell the house, and even seeing other people, which of course leads to more problems. Thinking that they have come up with some crazy new scheme that courts have never seen before that will allow them to keep everything and give their spouse nothing. And it's usually something illegal, generally hiding assets, and they've usually already started doing it. I met a divorce lawyer in India, and you know what's unique for a divorce lawyer in India? Divorce. The profession didn't really exist until about 15 years ago, and even now it's very difficult convincing people that they really do need a divorce because it's so shameful in the culture. Paralegal here. When cheating is involved, the client will often bring in mountains of photographs, text message printouts, bank statements showing where cash was withdrawn, etc. They need me to understand how awful this is and they want me to go stake out their soon-to-be cheating ex. Cheating is insanely common. My standard reply of, yes, understand. Yes, I have seen hundreds of pictures and thousands of text messages. Yes, she is terrible for doing this to you, is always met with, but you don't understand. This is the worst thing that has ever happened. Trust me, I understand. You are coming to see me on your worst day ever. I will be sure that the attorney understands your file inside and out, but you aren't going to shock us. And I am not Facebook stalking your soon-to-be ex. Well, I might. Just for fun. but I won't go on a stakeout with you. Don't let your marriage turn to this. My mom's a divorce lawyer and I asked her, and she said that most people who she works with seem to think they are unique with how much of an arsehole their ex is. I often receive warnings from clients about how clever or smart their spouse is and to be careful as to not let them manipulate me. I don't want to be insulting, so I just say something like I am a professional, etc. In reality, the other spouse has never been very clever at all. They just had power over my client that they've built through long-term emotional and psychological abuse. The client is usually pretty delighted to finally see their abuser get ripped to shreds in court. Context: family lawyer working with domestic violence survivors. Texas family law attorney. How controlling their spouse, usually husband, it's verbal abuse. The husband only wants 50/50 possession of kids to waive child support. The wife only wants primary conservatorship to receive child support. Constantly thinking spouse is purposefully delaying the case, even if it is a court scheduling issue or judge's order. Seeking supervised visitation of kids with no supporting basis, usually husbands, thinking they shouldn't pay as much child support if they don't see their kids very much, when in fact it is the exact opposite. Withholding visitation of kids if the other spouse does not pay child support, at least in TX. Non-payment of child support is not a factor in visitation. Adultery. Even clients who are swingers allege adultery, which is impossible to prove in a swinger relationship. The spouse making less money thinks they're entitled to more, like an 80/20 division of property instead of a reasonable split. Not saying 50/50 is always fair, but it is usually close. Clients with a reimbursement claim demand the other spouse pay them $X, when the entire community estate is worth much less than $X. There are many more, but these are just off the top of my head. Asked a friend about this once. He said how many people come in peacefully together. It's not the big standard and it's not everyone, but it happens way more than you'd expect. Both spouses just want the divorce and to move on. Apparently it happens quite a bit. He said that sometimes they'll devolve into a bit of a battle over assets. Rarely kids, but more often than not if a couple comes in together he has a bad day because he makes the least money off of them. He said one couple, collectively after their divorce, sent him a Christmas basket one year. Basically they wanted out and he helped navigate the legalities of it, and everyone was happy. He also had a story of a woman who had to consult with 2 private investigators for her husband cheating. The first one she hired was the woman he was having an affair with. Oh god. I know this one. 26 years in law practice and 15 of those doing domestic relations cases, and now I finally get to say with authority, they think their spouse is the worst ever and that their divorce is the most difficult ever. My most common answer to their on and on rants came to be, this is costing you about $5 a minute and we can make better use of my time. Besides, you're the one who married him. At least in Maryland, people assume because the spouse was cheating they will be able to get more money in alimony from the judge than they would have gotten otherwise. Not so much about what do my clients think is unique, but something I've noticed, only the rarest of the rare client can understand how they are super illogical when it comes to their divorce. Divorce isn't rocket surgery, but almost everyone tries to make it that way. I still recall when I told my father that I was going to propose to my girlfriend, now wife. My dad, who was divorced from my mother when I was 5, gave me some great life advice. He said marry whoever you want, but be careful who you have kids with. That really stuck with me, and is advice I've passed along to my closest friends when the subject of proposals comes up. Thanks, Dad. People think the court cares about them, but all the court cares about is the kids. Holy it. Reading all these comments makes me even more grateful that my divorce was amicable and a clean break. Even with kids. Didn't even use lawyers. I believe I heard this before on Reddit. When you first meet your client you are convinced that the other spouse is crazy. After working with them for a while you realize they are both crazy. Sane people don't marry crazy people that often. Male potential clients come to me asking for help getting their child support lowered for all kinds of reasons that make sense to them but nobody else, especially not lawmakers, judges, or lawyers. My favorite is when they say they just had another kid with new wife or girlfriend and they expect that means their pre-existing child support obligation for that kid who lives 100% with mom should be cut drastically. When I tell them it doesn't really work that way, they get bent out of shape. Also, when they come to me and ask for a modification and learn that our state's guidelines went up since their last court order and that a modification would probably mean they pay more money, guys look at me like I must be crazy. Not a divorce lawyer, but know a few. Here's the honest answer. Basically everything. Clients always think their issues are unique because they have never seen it done or gone through it before. Lawyers have seen basically everything. Is there some new wrinkle most times? Sure, but that's like saying dogs are common even though this one has a unique pattern of spots. I'd be at least as curious to know what they think is common but is actually unique. Potential divorce clients don't want to believe that if they and their spouses can't actually afford to maintain two separate households now that getting a divorce won't somehow magically make it affordable. I do my best to help them have reasonable expectations. I tell them what they should expect. I tell them that many times getting a divorce means that they'll be giving up the home they live in currently and the possibility of home ownership in the foreseeable future. I suppose I could just whip them up and say, let's get that son of H. Sign here and give me your money, but I don't. I send a lot of divorce inquiries to marriage counselors, from whom I receive no remuneration. I feel like many divorce practitioners in my area give people unrealistic expectations. Then they can the flames of discord, and then they profit. I prefer criminal defense practice. It's more honest. I feel like I am providing a more valuable service when I'm protecting people from the awesome power of the state. People generally just don't understand what no-fault divorce means. Yes, I understand he/she cheated. Yes, I understand that he/she was a bad spouse and was verbally abusive. Yes, I understand this ruined your life. No, that information does not make a single iota of difference as to who gets what, at least in my jurisdiction. Are there just bots that repost highly pivoted comments from seemingly similar threads from the past? This is the second case of this happening so far in this thread. First up, not a lawyer, so stop reading if that bothers you. Number 1 for me, except in my case she found her lesbian self. Just a shame it took 13 years of being with me and a 10-year marriage to find out. Thankfully no kids or property, just yet loads of debt. We split it. Mine's paid off. Hers isn't but is in my name. 2017. A copyright. How common is it to sign a prenup? Does it vary a lot by country, state? 1. That being hostile, stubborn, or argumentative is going to somehow benefit them during the divorce proceedings. The opposite is true. Yes, divorce is an emotional process and feelings are always going to be a part of it. But the more willing that the parties are willing to work with each other, the better the outcome will be for everyone involved. 2. Also, unless you live in certain states, it does not matter to the court the reason you are getting a divorce. Your partner could have cheated on you for 5 years, or squandered all of the family savings on booze and hookers. In a no-fault state, like California, it makes no difference whether you are the side in the wrong. 3. You can do it yourself. I can't count how many cases that I've had to clean up because people have tried to do the divorce themselves. Consider that if you had pretty serious medical problem, you wouldn't try to cut yourself open and fix it yourself. But people seem to think that even though they're still amicable with their STD exes that they're able to handle serious legal issues such as divorce on their own. Now, just know a bunch of other divorced women. 2 things I haven't seen here yet, but have a few times in real life. Dudes think they can force their soon-to-be ex-wife to retake her maiden name. My ex tried this. Because he knew how much I hate my maiden name. It's an unflattering adjective. For most other men it seems to be I gave it to you, so I can't take it away. I've also seen, and experienced, one parent deciding that both parents having equal legal rights to the kids before a custody agreement is made means that taking the kids and refusing to let the other parent have contact with them is a good thing, absent actual, documented abuse. I don't think this ever doesn't blow up on the parent who tries it. One rule that divorcing spouses can take to the bank: it doesn't matter in the least how many men, women, or members of the animal kingdom your partner was sleeping with. The judge is just there to decide on splitting up of marital assets, child support and alimony. Your personal horror stories can be saved for your close circle of friends. Not a divorce lawyer, but I was a retirement counselor and disability claims processor for over 30 years and took a full marital history on every client. Viagra and other anti-impotence drugs being developed contributed to a lot of divorces in the elderly population. Long marriage. Things got comfortable. Rocking along, papa gets the blue pill and hooks up with a, usually, younger woman. Saw it many times, and while most of the time it was the divorced woman who told me this, sometimes it was the man. My cousin got divorced without lawyers. They just filled out the paperwork themselves and decided between them how to split assets. They have kids too, so they just sort out who will have them when by communicating regularly. I really admire them for being so sensible. Lawyer here. Only been involved as an attorney in a few divorces, because that is not my area of practice. But other than the responses given by so many others, the thing that clients tend to think is that they have a foot they can put down about things. You can tell that judge I am not accepting less than 67%. Good luck with that. I don't care what he says. I'm getting the house. Well, you don't have to care what the ex says, but you do have to care what the judge thinks about what the ex says. I am that child's mother and I say he will go to this school, not that school. Also known as the Olutero ipsa loquitur, NB. Being the mother does not come with plenary authority. Taking a guess. Men not wanting anyone to know that their wife had an affair because they are embarrassed. I am a disabled man and my wife and I own a lucrative business that she ran. We are currently in a divorce and she has cut me off of all earnings from the business and I am surviving on my disability and therefore cannot afford an attorney. Is there a forum or subreddit that I can talk to someone in family law for advice? Mine might be a little unique in that it went off without a hitch. She was fooling around with some guy and decided she didn't want to be married anymore. So I just let her go. I handled all the divorce filing myself. Didn't go through a lawyer. Sent her the paperwork to sign. We split what was hers and what was mine in a single day. And I represented for the both of us in court without her present. Just sent a text later that day saying we were divorced. Split savings based on who had put into it and closed the joint account. I took the cat, she took the dog. Debts went to who was responsible for them. No alimony. Thankfully no kids in the mix. And we haven't seen or talked to each other ever since. Sad and unfortunate, but probably the most amicably handled divorce that I could have asked for. Edit. Having read further down this thread I realize that this is not unique in the slightest and is pretty much what level-headed people do. Way more than enough validation to continue to happily ignore my mother when she gets all butthurt about the fact that I refuse to ever get married. Potential clients genuinely believe they can easily make the other spouse pay their lawyer bill, my fee, because the other spouse is such a bad person by virtue of the fact that she has caused this divorce. Then I tell them it probably won't happen that way, that usually each side pays her bill, and that I'll need them to pay a retainer before I can work for them. Then they tell me they can't afford the standard retainer and ask if I'd be willing to take payments of $100 a month or something insane like that. Men very often think that they shouldn't have to pay child support if they don't have the kids stay with them regularly. Like, if she won't bring them here for weekend visits, then why should I have to pay support? My ex is a terrible human. Just getting engaged with her was a nightmare. I don't know what the duck I was thinking. But I asked her to marry me and she said yes, even though she later told me she never wanted to marry me. So her plan was for her to act like a total itch so I would break up the engagement. But I was blind in love. So first she tells me that if we are getting married, we needed a house. Now, I was just a fresh off college grad with very little money, but I work OT at the job I had, and took all my savings, put it down and actually buy a ducking 4-bedroom house in a nice part of town. So then in her evil mind, she comes up with another idea. She tells me that she loves the lake. She really does. That much is true. And that since she grew up with her family taking the family boat out to the lake, we had to have one. So I get a second job that worked on commission. I bust my ass. sell the duck out of our products and get enough money to buy a really nice boat outright. So, now she is angry cause I am bending backwards to give her all she wants. She is a very always religious girl. We had not have sex. And she tells me that she wanted her first time to be a special and she wanted it to be one she would never forget. So she wanted to honeymoon in Hawaii and that the first D to penetrate her had to be 12 inches long. So, stupid me goes off to a plastic surgeon to get 3 inches cut off my D. Why didn't I dump that stupid itch? Well, I think my divorce was unique. My boss at the time my ex and I split up had gone to an ACLU fundraising auction. One of the items in the auction was a coupon for a no-fault divorce, put up by some divorce attorney in a county near mine. No one would bid for it, so it was paired with a rocking chair. My boss bought the rocking chair, and therefore had this coupon. He didn't even know me at the time. I went to work for him shortly after that. My then wife and I just wanted to end it. She had slept with a minister from another state and then planned a summer camping trip with him. And I told her at that point that I was done. I moved out and refused to get back together. So there we were. So my boss gave me the coupon. Guess he didn't know he would need it later. And I used it to get my divorce. Didn't cost me, or anyone besides the lawyer, I guess, anything at all. Unless you count part of what my boss bid for the rocking chair. That they text each other rude comments, and that those texts should be exhibits at trial. Everyone thinks their ex has some sort of mental health issue. Narcissism is common. So is BPD. Now I ask, have they ever been diagnosed? The answer is almost always no, but it is just so clear that obviously a judge will see it. Ugh. The fact that you hate your ex is not sufficient evidence for anything, except that you need to be divorced. They are the only person on the planet to have ever been cheated on, without fail. They are the first and only, even if they also cheated. Most memorable domestic relations case I ever worked on. Wife worked for federal agency and traveled often for work. She had affairs when traveling and, it appears, got pregnant as a result. When husband learned his wife was pregnant, likely with another man's child, he became depressed and couldn't sleep and started taking sleep meds. Early one morning, on his way to work, under the effect of his meds, he fell asleep at the wheel of his truck, ran off the road, hit a guardrail and was killed. The wife sued my client, the firm that designed and built the guardrail, for wrongful death, seeking compensation for both her and her children. Only because my paralegal was especially chatty did she discover that a secretary in our firm lived in the same neighborhood as the wife and knew her whole story. When I sought to get a blood test for both children because I was challenging paternity, the wife quickly offered to settle for a modest sum. We accepted. I took her deposition before I knew there were questions about paternity. She showed up in a high-necked dress, her hands folded, ladylike, in her lap and occasionally dabbed at tears with a hanky. She put on a good show. My cousin was going to get her child support adjusted but didn't have a lawyer. Her friend works at a lawyer's office and got the lawyer to help out. After the lawyer talked to the ex one time, the lawyer agreed to take the case for free because her ex was so insulting. Just turned 30. Fam rags on me to get married and then I have friends D'ing around on their spouses while married. See all the telltale signs of a horrible relationship becoming a horrible marriage. I see no warranted reason to get married, even though the girls I've dated were superb and totally awesome. Some of the main reasons that we broke up is cause they view my lack of want for marriage as something that makes them question us. I view marriage as some archaic tradition. If you're a sheep then by all means, go rent a church and make God happy. Otherwise go buy a dope ring that isn't a diamond, throw a big ass party, or rent a cottage and celebrate it out of loving someone. I may not want marriage but a party. I'm always down for a party. In Texas, everyone thinks the judge will give them the kids or give them more of the assets if she just hears their side of things. No. In family law, we know what the end result will be 90% of the time. The code sets out exactly what people get. The only time it varies is when there is abuse. Even then, we know mostly how the judge will rule. No one is special. Where attorneys do make a difference is protecting the client from disputes down the road and negotiating for what's most important to the client. Ha, no actual domestic relations attorneys have responded. Probably because we all work 24/7, especially through the holidays, because all you duckers fight about everything. All the time. Forever. Welp. Here goes. It's not necessarily that they think it's unique, but they all think the fact the other party cheated means something. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. Fault divorce isn't really a thing anymore. I think you can still covenant into it, but my state and I think all others did away with it as a default thing. And the court generally doesn't give a rit, nor do the attorneys on either side. Cheating makes you a bad partner, not a bad person or a bad parent. People always tell me their ex is going to kidnap the kids and flee the country if they send them for a visit. It's never happened to me, or any attorney I know. I'm sure it does happen. Rarely. And then it's major news. But literally 9/10 people are convinced the minute they let the ex see the kids she will flee the US with them, never to be seen again. Wisconsin is a no-fault state. My lawyer told me it was ridiculous how many people she dealt with that wouldn't understand that cheating didn't matter. Yeah, it sucked. Yeah, it can tarnish the cheater's character, but the judge doesn't really care. Co-worker's wife works with a divorce lawyer. He handled one of her friend's divorce who was splitting up with his wife after a few months of marriage. In the paperwork was a clause that the wife and her mother had to go out to dinner with the husband. Another one. Your STBX is not a narcissist, bipolar, sociopathic, mentally unstable, etc. Not unless you have a licensed professional that is willing to testify to that in court. It's just a bad divorce. I worked as a paralegal at a law firm that only did family law. Every military client we had that got divorced after 25 or 30 years had a wife who wanted a divorce to date other women. I remember we had like 8 clients with that scenario at one time, but they each thought their case was unique. The wives would wait till the kids were old enough to be out of the house and the husband's about to retire, and boom, they would hit them with the news. It was a running joke at our firm. Family law attorney here. Not unique, but wildly misunderstood. Your prenup doesn't trump community property law. I tend to specialize more in bird law. This is simultaneously the most interesting and the most depressing thread. Your dog is not special. Yes, I know you love the dog. So does your STBX. No, the court will not order that you share joint custody of the dog. No, I am not going to file a motion demanding that you get to keep the dog. I don't care that you are the one who walked the dog, and neither does the judge. It's a dog. Rational people do not spend $400 an hour in attorney fees fighting over a dog. You and your STBX will both look like morons in court. Either the two of you agree on who gets the dog, or the judge is going to order the dog be sold and the two of you split the profit. Dogs are property, not children. Even your dog.